Kamesh. Thanks for joining us.
Somebody asked me to explain the job as to what do you do, and I said it's like going to university every day,
Correct.
learning something every day, and still getting paid for it.
Being in a global organization and then coming back with a very clear thinking to say we've got to do something different. So how does the thought germinate?
And we told in social media to people that you will publish whatever data you want us to publish. Then we keep getting that feedback, and we keep now pushing things.
Hello and welcome to season 2 of Leadership Unscripted. As they say, if it is not broken, why fix it? Well, our guest today has seen an industry that has worked wonderfully well for so many years, and everyone thought it's working just fine. And at 50, when most leaders are consolidating their legacy, planning the next session at the golf courses, he was signing his first term sheet. From the boardrooms of global insurance companies to the chaos of setting up India's first digital insurance tech company, he's done it all, and he's proved that experience is nothing but the best venture capital. It gives me a great pleasure today to welcome Mr. Kamesh Goyal, founder and chairman of the Go Digit Insurance Group.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kamesh. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, Pratik.
Yeah. So, Kamesh, before we get into the thought process of starting a new company at 50, there must be some method to this. So, tell us about your earlier years.
So I would say I think I grew up in a place called Khetri, which is at that time was a very big industrial area. It had India's largest copper mine. So in a very cosmopolitan place where you live in industrial township, you have people from all over India. In the earlier years, even from outside India. And then ended up in college in Delhi, St. Stephen's College. And I would say I think one would always plan for something or the other, but in my career and life, things have always gone in a direction which was not planned. And in 1987, I was not even 21. I just completed 21. A friend of mine from college, he was applying for this exam of GIC, which was called as Assistant Administrative Officer exam, and he said, you should apply. I had no idea what insurance is. And he says, it's like a bank probationary officer. I applied. I got into it and got into insurance. A couple of years later, started enjoying it, and was there in New India for about 8 years. Then I moved to a consulting company in Mumbai, where Allianz was actually one of our clients.
Okay.
And that is how I got introduced to Allianz.
Yeah.
When the sector was just opening up, the bill was not even passed. They said, like, you're not really a consultant. No, you should come and do some operational work. And that is how I landed up in Allianz. And then the JV was signed at that time. And then started with general insurance company. Became a CEO, I think, in late 2003.
What age were you?
I think when they declared me to be the CEO, I think it was 35, 36. In hindsight, I would say I'm really fortunate that I moved to Germany and in a role which was called as head of group planning and controlling. Controlling in German actually means performance management.
Right.
So I was the first non-German actually in that role. And was looking after performance management, strategy, etc. of the Allianz Group. And it was just an amazing experience in terms of learning. Because one would sit on risk, capital, investment, all sorts of committees along with the group CEO and group CFO. And strategy and the planning and all of that would actually be run, target setting, etc. will be run by our team in GPC.
Yeah.
So it was just an unbelievable
360-degree view.
Yeah, you learned so much. And somebody asked me to explain the job as to what do you do, and I said it's like going to university every day,
Correct.
learning something every day, and still getting paid for it. So it was a phenomenal sort of a learning place for me. And Munich also is a very, very beautiful place to live.
Yes.
So I think moving in there, I would say I was not very enthusiastic, and my family was.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of the best things which happened to me
Yeah.
in life as well as career.
So from Khetri to Delhi to Bombay to Singapore, Pune, then to Singapore,
Then to
then to Munich.
Munich, yeah.
Okay. So, and then from Munich, you get this urge to do something different. Being in a global organization, having seen New Indian Assurance, you almost seen insurance in a very set manner, and then coming back with a very clear thinking to say we got to do something different. So how does the thought germinate?
So if I remember, I think it was in 2014, the first time we started hearing continuously about InsurTech and the company in China called Zhong'an. Later, I think in early 2016 or late 2015, started hearing about Lemonade. And since the role was in strategy, etc., we tried to dig a bit deeper to understand what they were doing. And what we understood was that these companies were trying to build business based on the customer journeys, which had anyways started at that time. And in Allianz, if I remember, in one country, Allianz had already started this project. I think, if I remember correctly, it was Turkey. So I think that was very refreshing, I would say. And as we tried to dig a bit deeper, out of interest, curiosity, we felt that these companies were focused on one small piece of business, while coming from the traditional world of insurance, the real bread and butter of insurance, especially non-life, is more in motor, fire, etc.
Right.
And that's when this thought came that maybe there is an opportunity to develop a company which will be digital by nature, by default, but not only will focus on some new product areas, but also try and do things differently in some traditional lines. And more importantly, I think we always felt that being digital is more important internally than externally. So how do you really use data, underwriting flows, claim flows, etc. And I think that is how this idea really started taking shape.
And then choosing Bangalore as a location, getting the team together, how easy, difficult was it?
So actually we started initially from Pune.
Achha.
And the company was started on 1st of November 2016 without any registration or anything at all. 4 or 5 colleagues joined.
Okay.
And
all ex-colleagues of yours?
All of them were ex-colleagues.
Okay.
And a colleague called Sameer Bakshi, who is now our general counsel for the group, he joined because you have to start with registration of the company, all of that.
Right.
Jasleen joined on 1st of November.
Right.
From a very small office. Then I think a lot of other colleagues joined in 1st of January, including people like Philip. And I think it was essentially Philip's and Jasleen's decision to move from Pune to Bangalore.
Got it.
And I think the thought process they had at that time was that the tech talent availability is better in Bangalore at that time compared to Pune. And it was actually their decision to move to Bangalore. But the core team, I think getting it together was, I would say that we knew would be possible. And I think the reality is that Digit is actually not really about me or even say 4 or 5 of us. Out there are about 25, 30 people.
Right.
I would say who feel maybe as strongly, if not more, about Digit than I do.
I hear a lot of we in your conversation right through.
Yeah.
Which is very evident that it is a shared culture, shared feeling.
100%, yeah.
And a shared sense of belonging.
Oh, no, definitely. And I think a lot of our colleagues have actually invested in our companies also.
Yes.
Just, they've invested hard cash. So it's not just about, most of them, I would say, are as good as, somebody can be a large shareholder, plus driving it. So I think we have been fortunate that a lot of people, even beyond just 25, 30 people, a lot of people have that strong sense of ownership in Digit.
And folks investing hard cash speaks of their conviction.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
As you're building this vision and, pivoting the entire company on customer first, customer experience first, transparency. Was it, was it organic? Was it something that, you had to imbibe as you bring different people to say we are focused on the customer and the moment of truth? Uh, you know, Talk us about, how you sort of build that culture within the organization.
So I would say, I think two things we had in mind from day one. One was about simplicity. And this simplicity, I think in India, if we feel insurance products are complex, I remember in Germany, there were motor products which were complex that if this animal hit, then your policy would cover, and if another animal hit, it wouldn't cover. So products were really complex, and even in countries where insurance awareness is very high, people struggle with
what's written in the fine print.
Written in the fine print. And I think insurance is not something which is exciting for people as a career option also. So that is also a reality. So I think simplicity was ingrained, and it was, I would say, we initially thought simplicity about product. But I think as we started on this journey, we realized that, no, this is something which you can do in almost every area. And I think this journey will continue forever. Initially, my idea of simplicity was fairly limited to product. This transparency thing, I think we felt as very critical for Digit, because insurance companies at that time, if I remember the data, that half of the consumer court cases pertain to insurance companies.
Yes.
Now, insurance companies were very strong brands in India, in banking and financial services, very, very strong brands.
Yes.
So if you are setting up a new company and it is and a new brand, not only a new company, Digit also is a new brand.
Yeah.
Then on top of it, there is distrust. So we felt that transparency could actually be a way for us to try and differentiate ourselves and also try and overcome this element of trust.
Right.
And in this, I would say there was I got an idea from somebody just out of the blue to say, if you're looking at transparency, simplicity with your product or policy, why don't you send a 2-pager? 1-pager which clearly says what is covered, what is not covered, what you need at the time of claim. And the idea was exceptional.
Right.
We implemented it, and I spoke to the guy also to say, look, why didn't you give this to your own company? He works with an insurance company. And he says, I gave it 2-3 times. Nobody was interested.
Right.
And he was very happy that we picked it up.
Right.
So I think even in simplicity, some of these ideas actually came, I would say, even from outside Digit. And obviously, we have a very strong team. And this simplicity was driven by our communications colleague who were completely non-insurance.
Right.
So they actually saw this as a good opportunity. And then we came out with this concept that something product which a 15-year-old can actually understand.
Wow.
And we would actually get 15-year-old people, we'll take them through this 2-pager, they'll change the words.
Got it.
To try and really take it to that level. Transparency, I think we were clear. And in transparency, the first thing we started, I remember, was that in social media, if you look at most banks, insurance companies, they don't allow customer to give reviews. You can give a rating, but they don't open their social media pages for reviews. And we said, no, we should open it for review. And my communications colleague told me that
it's a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword, and you should be prepared. And there's no way you can actually go back on this.
Yeah.
We published this transparency report, and we published a lot of KPIs there. We still do every 6 months. And we told in social media to people that you will publish whatever data you want us to publish, in this transparency. And we keep getting that feedback, and we keep now pushing things. We publish some data about claim settlement, etc. on every 6 months basis, so people can compare how we are doing against our own. And obviously,
yes,
if there's a lot of data, at times it shows that things have actually not, instead of improving, things have actually gone back also. So I think that then continued. Then I think when we knew we are moving towards IFRS, we started publishing our full audited IFRS results, first insurance company to do so. So I think once you go on this journey, then it's like, people also keep coming out with more and more ideas. And then objective is that how do you really ingrain this into the culture?
Correct.
That you can't really go back on this.
Correct. No, but I think you make a very relevant point that as you start being so transparent and start sharing information, everyone within the company knows that, it's okay to be very open and clear and then work towards it so that you are really working and improving the metrics from a customer's satisfaction standpoint. Um, when you are in this journey, you obviously face various scenarios where you have to make conflicting choices, be it on products, be it on decisions that you need to take in terms of continuing, discontinuing. Sometimes it conflicts with the ethos of the company and what the company stands for, and sometimes personally, as in whether it makes any business sense. If you can give some examples of some decisions that are tough.
So I would say maybe I'll give you 3 examples. One of the things which as a core value is challenge the status quo. Second is transparency. So I think in this, when we think about challenge the status quo, and we obviously continuously debate earlier that how do we really establish this on the ground? So try and encourage new ideas. Then you have to try something even if your mind is not into this. So when this COVID came, I think one of our colleagues, it had just started. I'm talking about late January 2020. And he says, why don't we come out with the COVID product? And we came out with the COVID product. And we launched it on, I think, 27th or 26th of January when first COVID case was diagnosed in India. And obviously, then we had to keep making changes to some of that. So I think a lot of times when you really challenge yourself to status quo, you have to also remain quite open mentally. Because in our business, it's all about taking risk. So when you're challenging the status quo, and if it entails taking more risk, then obviously you have to do it, understand the perspectives, you have to really get out of the comfort zone.
Right.
So I think that really tested us. And when Delta wave came in 21 April, which was a really tough time for our country, and all insurance companies withdrew from this COVID market. Life insurance industry was frozen. And that time, I think we continued to sell our product without even increasing the premium rate. And every week, we'll spend 3-4 hours going through the data to say, should we continue it for another week? Should we stop? So I think it tests you a lot at times. But I think instead of trying to go only on gut, etc., you also have to keep looking at the data, keep testing your hypothesis or assumptions. I think the second example in terms of that we'll always build for the long term, that is our philosophy. And when we were going through the IPO in non-life, and we knew that the IPO will come now in April, May 24 last year, and the motor market was very tough. We actually started giving up market share in motor in January, February, March. And when we knew that the data is published every month, so we'll be actually going for the IPO. Our market share is actually coming down in motor, which was and still is our biggest line. At that time, it was substantially more. Now it has reduced a bit in proportion. But we still did what we thought is right at that time. And obviously, some of the investors would ask us that, like you're losing market share in this, what the trend line is. We said, as of now, we feel that the market conditions are such that it doesn't make sense. And it's like you can, another perspective of this is to say that, okay, even during this time when people would have gone more for market share, then let it go, that even at this time we are actually taking this decision.
You need to be blessed to have investors who will listen, and also your conviction to.
So I would say, I think all our 3 ventures are in a JV between, say, with Fairfax and me. So Fairfax, I think Prem Vatsa is I think one of a unique individual. So he actually never really gets into this.
Correct.
And as I said, all our team and all of us are shareholders also.
Correct.
So we don't really have to worry about any other investor per se.
Exactly.
Because I think our stake is more than anyone else anyway.
Correct.
And all of us are also shareholders in the company.
Absolutely.
So we do what we think is good for all shareholders. Because who will lose more?
Correct.
If we take wrong decision, they say, no, somebody like me. So I would say I think that was the second decision which I would say tested our philosophy of to do it for the right cause. And then the third, I think, is when we started the life insurance company. This industry, and I would not say rightly or wrongly, this industry is focused on being capital light, focused more on savings-related products because protection products consume a lot of capital, etc. I think we just went in the other direction. We went only for protection. So last year, I think maybe 96% of our business was protection. We went with very high retentions. We started with 8 crore per life. Could be our exposure, which typically in the industry is 20-25 lakhs.
Right.
And we went in that direction. It's only 2 years, slightly more than 2 years. So I would not say it is good or bad.
Right.
I think I'll wait for another 2-3 years, but I think we're on a very good track record on that. And it was not a concern because we know that if you try and follow others, then the chances of success are anyway very low. So I think we try and do whatever we can to think from a perspective and not worry too much about the market noise.
And if you look ahead, as insurance evolves, as India evolves, how do you think, still it is a very distribution-heavy business, and you've always been a balancer of saying, okay, digital, but at the same time, strong distribution. How do you think insurance will be sold if we had to fast forward next 10 years? How does, in your mindset, how will India evolve in buying protection?
So my sense is, I think agents in Europe, I saw this again very closely, that agents play a very, very important role. Agents and retail brokers play a very important role in servicing and explaining to customers, especially the choice they have in the product. So I think this is something which will continue here. Corporate, either you have your own internal teams, which a lot of Indian corporates and global corporates have, or you work with brokers. So I think agents or POSPs and retail brokers, they have a very strong role to play. I think what digital is doing and what at least we try to do from day one is how do you empower your own distribution that they can service their customers better.
Got it.
So you try and say that, okay, you can issue policies. So in our cases, almost all policies can be issued by the partners.
Got it.
A lot of endorsements can be done by the partners. The partners also know about claim status, etc., on as real time as possible.
Got it.
So we see our job as through digital and other means to empower them.
Exactly.
Now, tomorrow, if they're sitting with the customer, even today to some extent, but maybe that's a direction we have to move more and more. Because if some product is a bit complex and the agent, suppose, is not very familiar with that, then can we give them some 2-3 minute videos to explain the product?
Right.
Can we join the call with the agent to explain it to the customer, even if virtually? So I think people confuse digital with direct. Direct is a distribution channel.
Correct.
Digital is the way to how do you really interact internally, externally.
Right.
So I feel there's a scope and need for all distribution channels. Obviously, as product becomes more and more simple, some customers will also try and buy it from an app directly. It could be of a aggregator or of an insurance company, or it could be even of a retail broker.
Absolutely.
So I would say that it depends on the company. Today we see a lot of customers, they come directly on the app and lodge claims.
Correct.
Some customers still might call our call center and say will go to the agent or the workshop directly if it's motor.
Right.
But more and more customers, it will always be multi-channel.
Correct.
I think some customers might buy from one, come to other channel for service. And I think that is really the way forward. Yeah. I think I remember in Germany, Allianz had started it at, I can't remember the year, but in 2014-15, where a direct customer could actually buy directly from Allianz, but they would get attached to a agent for any servicing.
Okay, got it.
So if the price is say X for buying directly, but for service, if you're going to the agent, it could be say X plus 5 or 7%.
Correct.
I am just giving this not as a number, but as a concept.
Right.
And actually, a lot of customers did that.
Correct. Having spoken about that, I think no conversation is complete without AI. Your views on how, it will have an impact on the insurance company, just not claims and pricing, but really the way insurance will be sold using AI. Early thoughts on how that will sort of transform.
So I think in Digit, from day one, and a lot of this is coming from my tech colleagues. So we started focusing on document reading and images from AI from almost day zero. So I think there we have started seeing after 2 to 3 years, we started seeing some benefit where a system can read documents of all languages, etc. So I think that is a very good use case. I think now what in the last 6 months, 8 months, what we are focused on, and now we are trying to push this more, is that there is a lot of routine work which we do. Now, can we use AI to reduce the manual and routine work and try and automate this?
Right.
So we obviously use a lot of bots, etc. But even we have a lot of business analysts to do a huge amount of analysis of data. Now, a lot of these reports or some of things have been automated.
Absolutely.
But if you want to dig deeper or do something else, you want to massage data,
correct,
then I think a lot of these activities, AI can be used.
Correct.
So what we are saying now is that some of the bigger initiatives, like image reading, this fraud, I think we have done something. That is more driven by our tech colleagues. But what all of us, the so-called non-techies, can do is, can we use AI, whether it is Copilot or whatever, to try and improve our speed.
Productivity.
I would say more speed and quality by just 15%. So if we can improve the speed and quality by 15%, we are making a quantum jump, in both. So we are actually focused more on that.
Okay.
We have always, I think, we have been a believer that if you look at even our DRHP, etc., we never speak about technology. We speak about usage of technology.
Beyond insurance, given India is still not as penetrated from an insurance standpoint, where do you see the whole ecosystem being built out, financial literacy sort of going up? Anything that you think needs to be done? I mean, I'm sure as insurance companies you do it, just to sort of build that sort of awareness on the financial literacy side.
So I would say more than the literacy, I think product simplification and reducing the cost of product for the end customer. I would say these two are really, really the critical areas. And if I have to give a similar example from mutual fund, I think it was 2010, SEBI decided to say that, no, you cannot have any entry load. You can only have an exit load, which was also capped. And this substantially changed the cost structure of mutual funds, and it just took off. Later on, they also tried to say, don't have too many funds. No, you have to make a distinction between different philosophy, don't have different funds. My sense is we are now at that sort of a place where these two things have definitely to be done. And I think our regulator also is seized of this. If we don't do this, then coming out with ads and hoping that people will buy insurance because they've seen a good ad, I don't think it will ever work. Because nobody buys insurance as a first choice. It's not a shoe you are buying or a movie you are seeing.
Absolutely.
So cost has to be reduced and product comparisons, product simplicity has to be brought in, which only a regulator can actually do. Industry on its own, I think financial services across the world are not known to be customer friendly. So we have to keep that in mind. I think regulator has to push the industry to be more customer friendly.
The last segment where we are is what we call as flash finish. I think it's our take on the rapid fire.
Okay.
If these conversations were to be played 20 years from now for a first-time CEO, what would be one single advice that you would want them to remember for a new CEO starting out?
So I would only say that always think from a not from a position perspective. I think I studied in a Kendriya Vidyalaya where the motto was Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya, which is like, no, you have to move towards, out of the darkness towards light.
Right.
So I think more and more I think about it, I would say if we are focused more on learning than on the role, and if we think more about long term, and that is what really makes the difference. And these two things can only be there if you feel strongly about a subject.
Experience versus speed.
I would say you need both.
How do you rejuvenate your stress buster?
So one, I think I've been very fortunate that I'm generally not stressed, and definitely not for a long time. Because work, some situations in work can obviously be stressful, but work itself is not stressful for me. I read a lot, and as I said, also I have some really good friends. So for me, real stress buster is to just sit and gossip with friends.
And got it.
Yeah. And amongst friends, as I said, no, we've been friends for 35 years.
Yeah.
Some of us close to even 40.
Wow.
And I don't think that relationship has ever changed. And even if you meet somebody after 10 years, 15 years, the conversation would start from where you left it 15 years back. And nobody really, even ask that what you do this to. Most people say, okay, where are you based?
Correct.
Because
Correct.
if you can catch
Because you're friends, they know you as a person, not
so
who you are.
I think you have to find the right friends.
Right.
And a lot of people have also become a bit of a loner in my view.
Correct.
So
A lot of online friends, but nobody.
Yeah, so I think they need to have some real good friends with whom they can talk to.
Correct.
Anything and everyone. And I have like a couple of friends. I think we would know more about each other than even our wives, and both of us would have been married for more than 30 years.
That's a very helpful tip for a lot of people watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any show, movie that you binged on, or do you watch them, or is more just the...
No, I definitely do. But my all-time favorite now, I would say, is Michael Jordan's The Last Dance on Netflix.
Right.
I read a lot of autobiographies also, and I have watched a lot of sports documentaries.
Right.
Lots of them.
Okay.
On various coaches in football, of the cyclist, and from UK. Right. But I think this Michael Jordan's The Last Dance and the Chicago Bulls story and his whole persona, I would say nothing comes close in terms of adventure, drama, everything compared to what this guy has gone through.
Correct. Kamesh, thank you so much for your time. I think we covered a lot about your journey, a lot of the wisdom that you sort of shared with us, which is a culmination of all your experiences. And I think just the other side of yours in terms of, the friends, the family, and what sort of keeps you going, and the simplicity. I think not only the way you run the company, but the simplicity here brings a very calming effect, and which is probably evident in the way a company is run. Lots of messages for us to take, for the viewers to take, and really appreciate. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.